Imagine someone, maybe someone you know, just got through a really serious illness. Weeks in the ICU, maybe battling severe COVID.
Hmm.
They survived, thankfully, but they're left incredibly weak. Like sitting up, walking, even just holding something
Mhm.
it's a huge struggle. And starting regular physical therapy, it's often just too much. They haven't got the strength yet. It's a tough spot, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's a massive hurdle after critical illness. What you're describing often gets termed intensive care unit acquired weakness, ICUIW for short.
ICUAW. Even the name sounds serious. Is it? Is it common?
Disturbingly so, yeah. Research shows it hits anywhere from, say, 20% up to maybe even half of ICU patients.
Half. Wow.
Yeah, and think about the knock-on effects. It limits their mobility, their basic daily activities. It can really impact their independence long after they've left the hospital doors.
And I guess things like severe COVID, especially with long ventilation times, maybe other organ issues, and that whole long COVID picture,
Yeah.
that just makes it all harder.
It complicates things significantly, yes. Rehab becomes incredibly difficult when the patient just can't initiate movement themselves.
They need to rebuild, but they can't really do the rebuilding exercises yet.
Exactly. Their body just isn't ready for that kind of active work.
So this kind of leads to the big question, doesn't it? Is there something, maybe a technique, that could help rebuild strength, maybe help circulation too, even when someone can't actively move?
That's a really critical question in the field. It gets right to the heart of a major roadblock in recovery.
And that's exactly what we're digging into today in this deep dive. We take source material, like the research you've brought, and try to unpack it, make it clear, make it useful for you. Today, it's all about a big review looking into neuromuscular electrical stimulation, or NMES, and its potential for these patients recovering from really debilitating critical illnesses.
hmm And this isn't just speculation. We're basing this on solid, peer-reviewed science. The main source is a narrative review published in the Journal of Rehabilitation Medicine. And what makes this review particularly strong is the team behind it. It was truly multinational, multidisciplinary.
Oh, interesting. Who was involved?
Experts from places like Bournemouth University's Orthopedic Research Institute in the UK, the University of Maryland School of Medicine in the US, the National Clinical FES Center, Savitha Engineering College in India, Liverpool John Moores University, a real mix.
So you've got engineers, physios, critical care specialists, researchers,
Yeah.
all looking at this together.
Exactly. Bringing all those different viewpoints together is so important for tackling something this complex. They looked at the evidence from, well, all angles.
Makes sense. So they pooled their knowledge to see what the science really says about using NMES for these very vulnerable patients.
That's the core of it.
And who specifically were the patients in the studies they reviewed?
The focus was on adults in the ICU who were dealing with that ICOW we mentioned. A lot of them were recovering from severe COVID-19, often needed ventilation for long periods. So really, the patients stuck in that difficult place, too weak for normal rehab, maybe sedated, sometimes delirious. The average age in the studies was around 58.
Okay, got it. So severe weakness, ICUAW, rehab challenges. And the patients were typically middle-aged adults hit hard by critical illness. Now, NMES itself, you mentioned it. How does it actually work in simple terms?
Right, think of it like artificially triggering a muscle contraction. Instead of your brain sending the signal, MMES uses small electrical impulses. These come from pads placed on the skin, usually over the muscle or the nerve that controls it. The impulses make the muscle contract, but it's involuntary.
Ah, so it doesn't rely on the patient being awake or alert or even strong enough to try to move.
Precisely. That's the big advantage in critical care. Patients might be sedated, confused, or just physically unable to make their muscles work voluntarily. NMES kind of steps in.
That's really clever, like a
Yeah.
like a temporary bridge, keeping the muscles online when the normal control system isn't available.
That's a perfect way to describe it. A bridge therapy.
Okay, let's dive into the findings then. What did this big multinational review actually conclude? What are the real benefits they saw from using NMES in these situations?
Well, the review really highlighted a few key areas, especially winning the fight against muscle wasting and potentially speeding up recovery.
Muscle wasting. I mean, it feels like that it must happen incredibly quickly when someone is just lying in bed, unable to move.
Oh, it's shockingly fast. The review mentioned a comparison that really drives it home. Think about this. It might take you, say, 12 weeks of hard resistance training to build about a kilogram of leg muscle.
Okay, 12 weeks to gain.
But you can lose that same kilogram of muscle in just 1 week of complete disuse.
1 week. Seriously, that's frightening.
It is. It's a race against time.
Hmm.
So the question is, can NMES slow that process down?
And can it? What did the review find?
It found pretty compelling evidence that yes, it can. NMES seems to help prevent, or at least significantly reduce, the rate of muscle atrophy. One study they looked at specifically showed muscle loss was cut by about 40% in the NMES group compared to a control group.
40% less muscle loss. That sounds huge when it's disappearing that quickly.
It's a significant difference. To put numbers on it, the average rate of muscle volume reduction was about 10.4% in the NMES group versus 17.7% in the controls. Now, the review is careful to say the evidence for actually building muscle during the ICU stay is less clear, but just slowing that rapid loss, that's a major goal. It gives patients a much better starting point for later rehab.
Right, preserving what they have. That makes sense. Okay, slowing muscle loss, check. What about the speed of recovery overall? Did NMES seem to help patients get better faster?
There's evidence suggesting it might. The review points to studies where NMES use was linked to potentially faster recovery timelines, specifically things like less time needed on a ventilator and maybe shorter overall stays in the ICU.
Really? Can you give any specific examples from the studies they included?
Sure. One study they cited was quite striking. It showed the median time on ventilation dropped from 34 days in the control group right down to just 6.5 days in the group getting NMES.
Wow, 34 days down to 6.5. That's enormous.
It is. And other studies noted shorter ICU stays, too, like a median of 11 days versus, well, it was too long to estimate in the control group in one study. Another showed a mean of 10 days versus 16 days.
Cutting days, maybe even weeks, off ICU time has massive implications. For the patient, obviously, but also for healthcare resources.
Absolutely. And there's another critical benefit the review highlights, especially for patients who are immobile. That's improved circulation and lowering the risk of blood clots.
Ah, blood clots. VTE, venous thromboembolism. That's a really dangerous complication in the ICU, isn't it?
Extremely dangerous, yes. And unfortunately, quite common. The review notes that even when patients get standard preventative drugs, like blood thinners, the rate of VTE that includes DVT and PE can still be really high, maybe up to 22, even 31% in critically ill COVID patients.
That high even with medication. Okay, so how does NMES help with that physically?
It often involves placing the electrodes to stimulate a specific nerve, the common peroneal nerve, down in the lower leg. This stimulation makes the foot lift upwards. It's called dorsiflexion. This movement activates the calf muscles, and the calf muscles act like a pump.
A pump.
Yeah, when they contract, they squeeze the veins and help push blood back up towards the heart. It basically mimics the pumping action you get when you walk. This increases blood flow and stops blood from just pooling in the lower legs, which is a major risk factor for clots forming.
So even if the patient can't walk, NMES can kind of switch on that calf muscle pump for them.
Precisely. It provides that passive circulatory boost. And the review notes, this is pretty significant, NMES has actually been approved by NICE, the National Institute for Health and Care Excellence in the UK, as an alternative way to help prevent clots when other methods aren't practical.
Nice approval carries weight.
It does. It validates the circulatory benefit. And importantly, even if you're using NMES mainly to help the muscles, you're still getting the circulatory effect at the same time.
That dual action muscle and circulation sounds incredibly useful. Seems like it could be applied across the whole recovery journey.
The review definitely supports that idea, talking about a continuum of care. You could start NMES right there in the ICU, continue it during acute rehab, and maybe even use it as part of a home recovery plan later on.
What makes it so helpful in that really difficult ICU environment specifically?
Well, like we touched on, the main thing is it doesn't require the patient to be conscious or cooperative. Things like sedation, delirium, which one study found affected a staggering 65% of critical COVID patients.
65%.
Yeah. And even necessary things like being positioned prone, face down, for breathing support, all of that makes traditional active physio really hard, sometimes impossible. NMES gets around some of that by directly stimulating the muscles and boosting flow.
It still works, even if the patient is confused or barely awake.
Because the stimulation goes right to the nerve or muscle, yes, it can. But the review is also clear about practical safety points in the ICU. You have to make sure the device works safely with all the other monitoring and life support gear. And you need to be extra careful about skin health, checking under the pads, especially if the patient can't tell you if something feels wrong.
It really underscores how complex critical care is and why we need these kinds of innovative tools. Thinking about how hard it must be to get this kind of complex research out of journals and into the hands of people who can use it, patients, families, even just people interested in wellness.
Hmm.
It makes you appreciate resources that try to bridge that gap.
Totally agree. The science is amazing, but if it just sits in dense academic papers, its real-world impact is limited.
And, that connects really well to the work of companies like Orium's Fit. They're an Australian company, 100% Aussie-owned and operated, focused on quality wellness tech. But what's relevant here is their commitment to making the science behind wellness accessible.
Their focus on credibility is quite noticeable. For instance, they were named Best Product of the Year by productreview.com.au, which is Australia's big independent review site. And not just once, but for 2024 and 2025.
2 years in a row. Against how many nominees?
Yeah, 2 trophies in 2 years out of something like 68,000 nominees overall. That says a lot about product quality and user trust.
Definitely. And you see that reflected elsewhere too, right? Like customer reviews.
Absolutely. Nearly 500 Google reviews globally, averaging 5 stars. They've clearly built a large community, tens of thousands of users sharing positive experiences. You even see some of their products, like the Neck Theater, getting huge traction online. That hashtag Neck Theater tag has, over 17 million views on TikTok and Instagram, plus endorsements from major influencers. It shows they're connecting with people looking for reliable wellness solutions.
That kind of organic buzz and verified satisfaction builds confidence. It's not just marketing hype. And for listeners interested in understanding the science we're discussing today, their approach seems particularly relevant.
It is. They specifically work on making research understandable.
How do they do that? What's the mechanism?
They run something called the Orium's Fit Research Digest blog. It's essentially their science-backed blog series. What they do is take legitimate, peer-reviewed studies, exactly like this NMES review from the Journal of Rehabilitation Medicine, and they break them down. They translate the complex findings into simple, clear language that anyone can understand.
So it's aimed at people interested in the science, but maybe without the medical background or time to read the original dense papers.
Precisely. And crucially, and this aligns perfectly with what we aim for here on the deep dive, they always include links back to the original research paper.
Ah, transparency.
Exactly. So you, the listener, can read their summary, but then you can click through, see the original source for yourself, fact check it, go deeper if you want to. It's about empowering people with trustworthy information.
That kind of resource is gold. It helps people get past headlines and see the actual evidence. It builds that trust through education.
Mm-hmm. It's vital.
Okay, changing gears just slightly, but staying with the science, what about the longer view? This review seemed focused mainly on the ICU period or shortly after. Did the researchers talk about what we still don't know? What's next?
Yes, they made some clear recommendations for future research. One major gap is understanding the long-term effects of NMES. We see promise in the acute phase, but we need more studies tracking people months, even years after they leave the hospital to see the lasting impact on their function and quality of life.
Okay, longer-term follow-up.
Right. They also suggested refining the protocols for using NMES at home as part of that continuum of care, and doing more studies specifically focused on survivors of particular illnesses like severe COVID to really tailor the approach.
So the current evidence is promising, especially for that early stage preventing decline, maybe speeding things up a bit. But the call is definitely out for more robust long-term data.
Exactly. The review points out that many studies just don't have that long-term follow-up yet. It's definitely an area needing more work.
Well, this has been fascinating. It really shows how a technique like NMES, backed by serious research, can offer genuine hope and real benefits for people facing such a tough recovery after critical illness. It's science finding practical ways forward when the usual paths are blocked.
It really highlights how important it is to explore every tool we have to support recovery, especially using technology when the body can't manage on its own yet.
So maybe a final thought for you, our listener, to chew on. As medicine gets better and better at saving lives after critical events, how will technologies like NMES reshape what rehabilitation looks like? How will they empower people on that long road back to health?
It points towards a future where recovery isn't just about waiting or limited therapy options, but is actively boosted by smart technology.
If this discussion sparked your interest and you want to explore this NMES research review in more detail, we absolutely encourage you to do that.
And probably the easiest way to start is by checking out the Orium's Fit Research Digest blog. Like we said, they've summarized this specific study accessibly, and crucially, they link directly to the full scientific paper. It's a great example of making complex health science understandable and verifiable.
You can find that blog on the Orium's Fit website. Just look for their Research Digest. And of course, always remember, what we've talked about today is for educational insight based on research. It's not medical advice. Please talk to your healthcare provider about your own health situation.
Absolutely essential disclaimer.
We really hope this deep dive into NMES and critical care recovery was valuable for you. Feel free to share it with anyone who might find it interesting, leave us a review if you like, and connect with our community.
Exploring health frontiers with accessible science, that's the goal. And resources like the Orium's Fit Research Digest really help make that happen.
Until our next deep dive.